Good evening. I'm hereby calling to order the June 24th, 2019 meeting of the Mayfield Heights City Council. May I have a roll call, please, Vicky?
Mr. Mano?
Here.
Mr. Balestrea?
Present.
Mr. DeJohn?
Here.
Mrs. Sabetta?
Here.
Mrs. Tressi?
Here.
Mrs. Snyder?
Here.
Mrs. Spinney?
Here. Please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I'd like to welcome everyone this evening. We're going to start out with the approval of the minutes from the council of the whole meeting on June 10th, 2019. I trust everyone had a chance to read them over. Is there a motion to approve the minutes from the council meeting, the council of the whole meeting on June 10th, 2019? Moved by Mrs. Sabetta, seconded by Mr. Balestria. Are there any suggested changes, amendments, or deletions? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The council, the whole meeting minutes stand approved. Next is the council meeting on June 10th, 2019. Has everyone had a chance to read those over? Is there a motion to approve? Moved by Mrs. Teresi, seconded by Mr. Mano. Are there any suggested changes, amendments, or deletions? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The regular council meeting minutes of June 10th stand approved. Next on our agenda are correspondence and announcements. Does any member of council have any correspondence or announcements? I actually do. I was sent an email, and it's from a resident, and it says, on Sunday evening, June 2nd, my husband and I were heading home after dinner to our residence on Cobblestone Drive in Mayfield Heights when they encountered a flat tire. They were totally panicked as they listened to the flapping of the tire. They're senior citizens, and it was hard for her husband to change it. Her panic was put to rest as two Mayfield Heights officers near Ridgeberry Drive noticed their distress and came to their rescue. Officers Bayer and Snyder promptly offered to help and remove the damaged tire, replacing with the spare donut tire. We cannot express enough gratitude. We feel these two wonderful men for assisting us and worrying that we might damage the tire rim, stating that it was all in a night's work. Officers Bayer and Snyder are true credit to our vibrant community, and we want to give them accolades they deserve. Grateful residents Linda and Harvey Mitchell, 1312 Cobblestone Drive. So I thought that was nice, thought we would read that. So thank you. Does he change your tires, Diane? Next, we'll turn to reports of officers, starting with the mayor. Mayor DeSico.
Thank you and good evening. With the weather cooperating this weekend, despite predictions, I think this past weekend saw one of our best attended Unity Days I've ever seen. I think having a weather person as our Grand Marshal, we should always do that. I think that worked. I'd like to thank Sean Ward, Nick Tagg, Patty Rogeliner, and the entire Parks and Rec committee who also pitched in, the service department, the police and fire departments, for all their time and effort to help make this 26th annual Unity Days such a success. The endless hours of hard work were greatly appreciated. Great job, Sean. We did receive an enormous amount of positive feedback on our Citizen of the Year, Erin Sipos. Our social media was really blowing up about that. And she was honored Saturday night at Unity Days for her endless volunteer hours she contributes to the community, our schools, to our schools also, and helping to initiate the MAC Foundation. We're fortunate to have Erin in our community. Also, the Parks and Rec Department, in coordination with the Impact Group, prepared a survey focusing on residents' perceptions of our parks and pool. The survey will give us some insight of what is important to the residents, which will help set our future plans. Surveys were available to residents and visitors during Unity Days, and residents can easily access the survey on our website. The Impact Group will send out emails to a number of organizations and businesses requesting their input also. And this method will allow us to collect data from a wide range of sources. I think Mr. Mano will be happy to hear this. A vendor, and Mr. DeJohn, a vendor has been obtained to resolve issues with our council chambers, recording equipment, and the technician and system programmer will begin work soon to fix the hum on the council meeting recordings and to determine what is necessary to repair the switcher, the Crestron unit that is back there. So we're well on our way, I hope. Keep your fingers crossed. They think they could do it. So the Healthcare Committee, in their commitment to cost savings and better healthcare consumerism, worked with Medical Mutual to enroll in a program that will provide some pharmacy savings. There's a 90-day processing period, and the start date will be September 1st. And another vendor, Zenith, is working on our City Hall security cameras, and they should be complete soon. And that completes my report.
Thank you, Mayor. Are there any questions for the mayor? Mr. DeJohn?
I just want to thank the mayor for taking care of the sound system here. Thank you very much, Mayor.
We all appreciate it. Next, Director of Law, Mr. Murphy.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I have no report this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Murphy. Are there any questions for Mr. Murphy? Seeing none, we'll move on to Director of Finance, Mrs. Fagan.
Thank you. I also have no report this evening.
Thank you, Mrs. Fagan. Any questions for Mrs. Fagan? Seeing none, next on our agenda are reports of committees, commissions, and boards. We'll start out with the Building Committee, Mrs. Snyder.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have no report.
Thank you, Mrs. Snyder. Any questions for Mrs. Snyder? Mr. DeJohn?
Thank you, Madam President. Well, I got a complaint about a residence at 1360 East Minor, about that property there. It's in bad repair, leaning fences, a patio that cannot be used, and a leaky basement. And so through my investigation, I found out from the building department that although I was told that there's a rental property, it is not listed as a rental property with the city. So I'd like to ask if there's any kind of procedure to investigate these type of properties that are alleged to be rental properties and not registered with the city.
Mayor?
Absolutely. If you find out they are, they will definitely look into that. And they have to make sure that it is a rental property, and we'll look into it and we'll get them signed up. Absolutely.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Mr.
What was
Jameson,
the
you got
address,
that?
Bob?
1360 East Minor.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? Next, we will go on to Finance and Audit Committee, Mrs. Sabetta.
Thank you, Madam President. No report.
Thank you, Mrs. Sabetta. Any questions for Mrs. Sabetta? Seeing none, we'll move on to Legislative Committee, Mrs. Teresi.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I have no report this evening.
Thank you, Mrs. Teresi. Any questions for Mrs. Teresi? Seeing none, we'll move on to Public Works and Service Committee, Mr. Balestria.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Public Works and Service Committee did meet on June the 11th. I apologize to council, they do not have the minutes as of yet, but the Public Works and Services Committee has made a recommendation to council, and that's in the form of Resolution 2019-74 on the agenda this evening, and I'll discuss it at that time.
Thank you, Mr. Balestria. Any questions for Mr. Balestria? Parks and Rec Committee, Mr. Mano.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Let's see, this past weekend we hosted our annual Unity Days Festival that included one of the best weather weekends we have had in many years. Highlights of the week included: Friday, we inducted 8 new gold residents at a luncheon with past inductees. On Saturday, Yacht Rock Cleveland did a great job providing music. The fireworks wowed the crowd. Saturday was one of the most well-attended nights in recent memory. On Sunday at the parade, many enjoyed seeing Melissa Mack as our Grand Marshal, Aaron Sipos, our Citizen of the Year, and many other entertaining parade units. A big thank you goes out to all the sponsors, volunteers, and city staff that helped make this year's festival a success. Don't miss out on our next community event. Join us on July 25th for our car show. This year we are moving the event to Play Arcade and Kitchen. Play Arcade and Kitchen and Moe's Southwest Grill will be open for your concession needs. Billy Morris and the Sunset Strip will perform from 6:30 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. The car show will run from 6:30 to 9 p.m. This event is free to attend and $5 to enter a classic car. The city has begun a survey to gather information on what our community would like to see in our recreation facilities. We would appreciate it if you could stop by City Hall, drag a pool, or the community center to complete a paper version of this important survey, or you may also complete the survey online by visiting the website and clicking on the survey link. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Mr. Maddow, and thank you for cooking this weekend. Appreciate it.
I got Flipper's arm.
Any questions for Mr. Mano? Next, Safety and Transportation, Mr. DeJohn.
Thank you, Madam President. The only thing I'd like to say tonight, as we are going to break for the summertime, going to summertime schedule, is that we ask all the residents to help us out. If you see it, hear it, please report it. Our departments need that information. Thank you. Have a good summer.
Thank you, Mr. DeJohn. Any questions for Mr. DeJohn? Next, Board of Zoning, Mrs. Sabetta.
Thank you, Madam President. The Board of Zoning met on June 11th. We have several items on the agenda, and we can address them when they come forth. I encourage all applicants who are present to come forth during the public portion and address council. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Sabetta. Any questions for Mrs. Sabetta? We'll move on to Planning Commission, Mr. Belstria.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The Planning Commission did meet last week. As a result of that meeting, we have one resolution and one motion on the agenda tonight for council's consideration, and council was copied on the minutes, and I'll address any questions at that time.
Thank you, Mr. Belstria. Any questions for Mr. Belstria? Next.
Mrs. Finney?
Yes.
Just also, I would like to include that the Mayfield Cemetery Committee is having its annual meeting tomorrow at 6 o'clock at the Mayfield Civic Center, and I am that representative to council. I just want to make council aware that there will be a meeting.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Belstria? Seeing none, we'll move on to the public portion of the meeting. Pursuant to city code, each person will be allowed 5 minutes to speak, with a maximum of 30 minutes allotted for the entire public portion. Although it is not a time for public debate, this is your opportunity to address council with your concerns. Please know there'll be no personal attacks or comments. Also, if you're here in connection with an agenda item, this is your opportunity to address council. If you would like to be heard this evening, please raise your hand and be recognized, then approach the podium and state your name and address for the record. It is now 7:14. I will open the public portion. Anybody? Sir? Approach the podium and state your name and address for the record.
James Wallace with Perspectus Architecture, 5548 Canterbury Lane, Highland Heights, Ohio, 44143. We're here to present the Apex Dermatology Medical Office Building, and we had a few comments we wanted to bring up for tonight and just make council aware. You'll be voting on this issue, I guess, tonight. Other way. Okay, right first. We just want to revisit the site. BZA was great in approving the variances, 7 of the 8 variances we asked for at the BZA hearing, and but we want to point out a couple things. A lot of that was based on the fact that the current zoning code for this piece of property really restricts its use as a U7 district, and we needed those variances to allow us to build a realistic project on the site. If we were to follow just what was within the zoning code, we'd be restricted to 6,200 square feet of building, and that would not meet our needs and not make this really a financial viable project. So at the meeting, we presented requests for a number of variances, and again, all the setbacks that we requested were approved. Exception of one variance was requested for the change of the wall along the property on the west end to a vinyl fence. And that time, that was not approved in the BZA hearing, but we have some additional information we'd like to present today. That, I'm not sure, do you want me to approve this again? Okay. We also presented this site plan at the meeting, which indicated how we're gonna use the site with the building, where Apex Dermatology is gonna be the main tenant of this building, approximately 10,000 square feet of the 20-some thousand square feet we're gonna build. And then we're gonna have some adjacent tenant spaces, all looking and planning those to be medical office specialties that will all kind of work in concerts. We're looking for 2 entrances, one off of Landerbrook and one potentially off of Cedar. And we want to move those entrances obviously furthest away from the Landerbrook Drive entry just to minimize traffic. We know there's a traffic study that will need to be done, and all that will be coming forth for the Planning Commission. We're here today because our next step is to really move forward with the purchase of the property, and that's the next step for Dr. Garcia.
Sir, keep in mind you only have 5 minutes.
Thank you. My name is Luke McConville. I'm legal counsel for Apex Dermatology and Dr. Garcia. And I wanted to take the opportunity to address the practical difficulties test as it relates to the requests for variance. In particular, with respect to the variances that were approved by the Board of Zoning Appeals, I think the board members agreed with our position that because the site itself is a 2.7 acre site, where a 3 acre site is required, that variances are going to necessarily be required to fit a medical office building onto the property, which is the purpose for which the property is zoned. So we've tried to thoughtfully plan the site in a way that has minimal impact on neighboring properties, and that presents smaller variances wherever possible so that we can meet that practical difficulties factor of not presenting substantial variances. We also think that each of the variance requests will fit into the essential character of the neighborhood and helps to obviate what would otherwise create economic hardship by reducing the footprint of the building. With respect to the variance request that was not approved, which is the request that the buffer along the residential property either be, I guess the best way to put it is our request is that that buffer be other than a masonry wall. And I think it may be helpful to walk through all of the factors of the practical difficulties test because we think that we meet most of them. Principally, the construction of a masonry wall will be quite expensive. Will add to the overall cost of the project by, our understanding is by more than 6 figures. And so the first factor under the test is whether the property will yield a reasonable return. And we think that the return is impacted substantially if we have to make that kind of investment. The second factor, whether the variance is substantial, we think the variance we're asking for is not substantial because, again, we're not asking that there not be a buffer. We're asking that the buffer be something other than a masonry wall, either landscaped mounding and trees or alternatively a vinyl fence.
Sir, you've reached your 5 minutes. Does anyone want to make a motion to extend 5 more minutes? Moved by Mrs. Snyder, seconded by Mr. DeJohn. All in favor?
Aye.
Mrs. Tracy, abstain.
Abstain. Oh, sorry. So, Mr. Mano, you want to make the first motion then? I mean, second, Mrs.
Yeah,
Snyder.
I'll second.
Okay. I'm sorry. I thought you were raising your hand that you were making a motion. You have 5 more minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, and I'll be brief. The third factor is whether the essential character of the neighborhood would be substantially altered or whether adjoining properties would suffer a substantial detriment. Again, because of the nature of the variance we're asking for, we think that either the vinyl fencing, which is something that is present on other properties in the city, or alternatively the landscape mounding will fit into the character of the site. We have every intention of designing a site plan with the first-class medical office building and having all the elements fit in. And we think that because there will still be a buffer, there won't be a substantial detriment to the neighboring property owner. Fourth factor, whether the variance would adversely affect delivery of governmental services. I don't think there's any evidence that governmental services would be impacted by changing the type of wall that's there. The fifth factor really does not apply to us. The sixth factor, whether the property owner's predicament can be obviated through some other method, and really it cannot. We're seeking cost savings here to make the purchase of the land work for us. And lastly, whether the spirit and intent behind the zoning requirement would be observed and substantial justice done by granting the variance. We believe this factor is met again because the spirit and intent, I think, behind the zoning requirement is that there be a buffer to the neighboring property owner, and we're still intending to meet that requirement.
Thank you. Are you finished? Okay, thank you. Anybody else like to be heard this evening? Mr. Ward.
Sean Ward, Recreation Director. Just a few quick points. Thank you to everyone for showing up for Unity Days and being a part of that. I really appreciate that. Just a survey update. We have close to 100 surveys in. That's a combination of both online and the hard copy. We got 24 surveys from our gold residents on Friday afternoon. I think we had about 40 from the rest of the weekend, Unity Days weekend, and the rest came in online. So we're off to a good start, but I would appreciate you pushing it out to your friends, neighbors, anyone in Mayfield Heights. If everyone gets 10 to 15 people, that'll get us a good number in there. So just push it out to your friends and neighbors and constituents. You have hard copies there. You want to give it to them, and on the top I put a sticker that gives them the website if they want to take it online. That's obviously easier. And then in the early to mid-July, we'll start doing focus groups. I think we have 5 focus groups we'll be doing, so we'll get those together, and the impact group will come in and lead those. So that's all I got. Thanks.
Madam President.
Thank you.
Madam President.
Mr. DeJohn.
Mr. Ward, can you just let the residents at home know what the survey is? Some of them may not know.
It's a recreation survey, just to get a survey on our facilities and the aged facilities and what to do with them. Get a take from them on what they feel about our facilities and the rec department in general, so that the mayor and council has direction on where to go.
Thank
you for letting them know.
Anybody else like to be heard this evening? Seeing none, we will close the public portion at 7:24. We will start tonight with resolutions, starting with resolution 2019-62. Mr. Murphy.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Resolution 2019-62, a resolution confirming the action of the Board of Zoning Appeals of the City of Mayfield Heights in granting to Denny Shoe Beauty Bar, 1277 Som Center Road, loft number 13, permission to perform microblading and semi-permanent cosmetics as accessory uses at the beauty salon. Cuyahoga County Permanent Parcel Number 862-26-002. First reading.
Thank you, Mr. Murphy. Is there a motion to suspend?
Move.
Moved by Mr. Mano, seconded by Mrs. Teresi. Roll call, please, on the motion to suspend.
Mr. Mano.
Yes.
Mr. Belstria.
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn.
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta.
Yes.
Mrs. Teresi.
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder.
Yes.
Mrs. Finney.
Yes. Is there a motion to approve? Moved by Mrs. Snyder, seconded by Mrs. Sabetta. Discussion, Mrs. Sabetta.
Thank you, Madam President. Council is aware of these requests for microblading as an accessory use. Note, again, a condition has been added to the resolution. Quote, use granted provided that there will be no tattooing or piercing. This was a unanimous approval and all members were present.
Thank you, Mrs. Sabetta. Any questions? Discussion, Mr. Belstria.
Mrs. Sabetta, in one of the previous applicants where we granted this, the use for microblading, the particular applicant also did tattooing for breast reconstruction patients. Did that come up at all? Because I see that now it's just limited to microblading. Did this applicant have any inkling that they might do that kind of work as well? Because it kind of went hand in hand.
The applicant is here if you'd like
Oh.
to address it.
Yes, no, okay, the applicant's saying, okay, thank you.
Yes, no cosmetic.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Roll call, please, Vicky.
Mr. DeJohn?
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder?
Yes.
Mrs. Tressi?
Yes.
Mr. Belstria?
Yes,
Mr. Mano?
Yes.
Ms. Sabetta?
Yes.
Mrs. Finney?
Yes, Resolution 2019-62 has been adopted. Next on our agenda is Resolution 2019-63. Mr. Murphy, please.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Resolution number 2019-63, a resolution confirming the action of the Board of Zoning Appeals of the City of Mayfield Heights and granting to Rosalind McKean, 1191 Eastwood Avenue, a variance to widen the driveway on said property to 18 feet at the garage and tapering to 10 feet at the sidewalk. Cuyahoga County Permanent Parcel Number 861-04-077. First reading.
Thank you, Mr. Murphy. Is there a motion to suspend? Moved by Mrs. Sabetta, Mrs. Snyder, seconded by Mrs. Teresi. Could I have a roll call, please, on the motion to suspend?
Mrs. Tressi?
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta?
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder?
Yes.
Mr. Mano?
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn?
Yes.
Mr. Belstria?
yes,
Mrs. Finney?
Yes. Is there a motion to approve?
moved,
Moved by Mr. Mano, seconded by Mr. Balestria. Discussion, Mrs. Sabetta.
Thank you, Madam President. The permitted width of an 18-foot on lots that are 50 feet or more. The property lot being discussed is 45 feet. This could be considered inherent hardship. Can't make the lot bigger, but it's practical difficulty due to the short drive. Unanimous approval, all members are present.
Thank you, Mrs. Sabetta. Any questions, discussion? Seeing none, can I have a roll call, please, Vicky?
Mr. Belstria?
yes,
Mrs. Tressi?
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta?
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn?
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder?
Yes.
Mr. Mano?
Yes.
Mrs. Finney?
Yes, Resolution 2019-63 has been adopted. Next on our agenda is Resolution 2019-64. Mr. Murphy.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Resolution number 2019-64, a resolution confirming the action of the Board of Zoning Appeals of the City of Mayfield Heights in denying to Olga Abrash, also known as Olivia Abrash, 6029 Ascot Road, a variance to place a chain link fence along the property line in the side yard to the east of the house. Cuyahoga County Permanent Parcel Number 863-08-027. First reading.
Thank you, Mr. Murphy. Is there a motion to suspend the rules? Moved by Mrs. Teresi, seconded by Mr. Balestria. Roll call, please, on the motion to suspend.
Mrs. Snyder?
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn?
Yes.
Mr. Mano?
Yes.
Mr. Belstria?
yes,
Mrs. Sabetta?
Yes.
Mrs. Teresi?
Yes.
Mrs. Finney?
Yes. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Moved by Mrs. Teresi, seconded by Mrs. Snyder. Discussion, Mrs. Sabetta.
Thank you, Madam President. Chain link fence is not permitted on the side property lines, only in the rear. The applicant stated that she wanted to add this chain link fence to her neighbor's chain link fence to keep her neighbor's snow from coming on her property. So the committee felt that this fence would not hold the snow back, and that since the fence ordinance was a newer ordinance, they denied her request. It was a unanimous denial, and all members were present.
Thank you, Mrs. Sabetta. Any questions, comments? Seeing none, roll call, please, Vicky.
Mrs. Sabetta?
Yes.
Mr. Mano?
Yes.
Belstria?
yes,
Mrs. Tressi?
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder?
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn?
Yes.
Mrs. Finney?
Yes, Resolution 2019-64 has been adopted. Next on our agenda is Resolution 2019-65. Mr. Murphy.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. And if there is no objection for resolutions 2019-65 through 2019-72, I'll read the permanent parcel numbers the first time, but the rest of the time, I'll just refer to it as 16 parcels on undeveloped Jasmine Circle. It's, you'll still know what we're referring to.
Thank you.
Resolution 2019-65, a resolution confirming the action of the Board of Zoning Appeals of the City of Mayfield Heights in granting to Jim Wallace, Prospectus Architecture, on behalf of Apex Medical Office Building, a variance to reduce the minimum lot area of the development from 3 acres to 2.7 acres. Cuyahoga County permanent parcel numbers 861-29-003 through 861-29-005 inclusive, and 861-29-014 through 861-29-026 inclusive, consisting of 16 parcels on the undeveloped Jasmine Circle. First reading.
Thank you, Mr. Murphy. Is there a motion to suspend the rules?
Move.
Moved by Mr. Manos, seconded by Mr. Balestria. Can I have a roll call, please, on the motion to suspend?
Mr. Mano.
Yes.
Mr. Belstria.
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn.
Abstain, and I will be abstaining on Resolution 2019-65 through 2019-72. I had a prior business relationship with the adjacent lot owner who is spoke up about this case. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. DeJohn.
Mrs. Sabetta.
Yes.
Mrs. Teresi.
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder.
Yes.
Mrs. Finney.
Yes. Is there a motion to approve? Moved by Mrs. Snyder,
Second.
seconded by Mr. Balestria. Discussion, Mrs. Sabetta.
Thank you, Madam President. This is a 0.3 acre variance. The parcel is 2.7 acres. The building needs to be multi-tenant. We're dealing with a small parcel, so the difficulties and hardships are inherent in the land because of the physical size. It's a unanimous approval. All members were present.
Thank you, Mrs. Sabetta. Any questions, discussion? Mr. Murphy.
Thank you. I'd just like to clarify, in Mr. McConville's presentation, he mentioned the tests that you use to determine practical difficulty. And I'd just like to clarify that all of those don't have to be met. It can be as little as 1 or 2. It's a matter of discretion of council as to whether or not there is sufficient tests have been met to show practical difficulty, but all of them don't have to be met.
Thank you, Mr. Murphy. Can I have a roll call, please, Vicki?
Mr. DeJohn.
Abstain.
Mrs. Snyder.
Yes.
Mrs. Teresi.
Yes.
Mr. Belstria.
Yes.
Mr. Mano.
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta.
Yes.
Mrs. Finney.
Yes. Resolution 2019-65 has been approved. Next on our agenda is Resolution 2019-66. Mr. Murphy.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Resolution 2019-66, a resolution confirming the action of the Board of Zoning Appeals of the City of Mayfield Heights in granting the Jim Wallace Prospectus Architecture on behalf of Apex Medical Office Building a setback variance of 95 feet to allow construction of the building to be 130 feet from the center line of Cedar Road. And this is 16 parcels on the undeveloped Jasmine Circle. First reading.
Thank you, Mr. Murphy. Thank you. Is there a motion to suspend the rules?
Moved.
Moved by Mrs. Teresi, seconded by Mr. Balestria. Can we have a roll call, please, on the motion to suspend?
Mrs. Teresi.
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta.
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder.
Yes.
Mr. Mano.
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn.
Abstain.
Mr. Belstria.
Yes.
Mrs. Finney.
Yes. Is there a motion to approve?
Move.
Moved by Mr. Manos, seconded by Mrs. Snyder. Discussion, Mrs. Sabetta.
Thank you. The next resolutions, 2019 through 66 through 2019-71, they are dealing with side and rear setbacks, corner lot, parking impact. All are self-explanatory. They are spelled out and labeled on the drawings. There was unanimous approval and all members were present.
Thank you. Any questions, comments? Seeing none, could I have a roll call, please, Vicki?
Mr. Belstria.
Yes.
Mrs. Tressi.
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta.
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn.
Abstain.
Mrs. Snyder.
Yes.
Mr. Mano.
Yes.
Mrs. Finney.
Yes, Resolution 2019-66 has been adopted. Next on our agenda is Resolution 2019-67. Mr. Murphy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Resolution 2019-67, a resolution confirming the action of the Board of Zoning Appeals of the City of Mayfield Heights in granting to Jim Wallace Prospectus Architecture on behalf of Apex Medical Office Building a setback variance of 93 feet to allow construction of the building to be 132 feet from the center line of Landerbrook Drive. And again, this is 16 parcels on the undeveloped Jasmine Circle. First reading.
Thank you, Mr. Murphy. Do I have a motion to suspend the rules? Moved by Mrs. Snyder, seconded by Mrs. Teresi. Could I have a roll call, please, on the motion to suspend?
Mrs. Snyder.
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn.
Abstain.
Mr. Mano.
Yes.
Mr. Belstria.
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta.
Yes.
Mrs. Tressi.
Yes.
Mrs. Finney.
Yes. Is there a motion to approve? Moved by Mrs. Teresi, seconded by Mr. Balestria. Mrs. Sabetta, anything to add?
No, they all are connected, and we did lump them together at the BZA, so I'm doing what we did.
Anyone else? Okay, roll call, please, Vicky.
Mrs. Sabetta.
Yes.
Mr. Mano.
Yes.
Mr. Belstria.
Yes.
Mrs. Tressi.
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder.
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn.
Abstain.
Mrs. Finney.
Yes. Resolution 2019-67 has been adopted. Next on our agenda is Resolution 2019-68. Mr. Murphy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Resolution 2019-68, a resolution confirming the action of the Board of Zoning Appeals of the City of Mayfield Heights in granting to Jim Wallace Prospectus Architecture on behalf of Apex Medical Office Building a side yard setback variance of 10 feet to allow the construction of the building to be 90 feet from the west property line. And again, this is a parcel consisting of 16 parcels on the undeveloped Jasmine Circle. First reading.
Thank you, Mr. Murphy. Is there a motion to suspend the rules? Moved by Mrs. Snyder. Second by Mrs. Teresi. Could I have a roll call, please, on the motion to suspend?
Mr. Mano.
Yes.
Mr. Belstria.
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn.
Abstain.
Mrs. Sabetta.
Yes.
Mrs. Tressi.
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder.
Yes.
Mrs. Finney.
Yes. Is there a motion to approve?
Move.
Moved by Mr. Mano, seconded by Mrs. Teresi. Any discussion? I think Mrs. Sabetta's pretty much summed everything up. Could we have a roll call, please, Vicky?
Mr. DeJohn.
Abstain.
Mrs. Snyder.
Yes.
Mrs. Tressi.
Yes.
Mr. Belstria.
Yes.
Mr. Mano.
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta.
Yes.
Mrs. Finney.
Yes. Resolution 2019-68 has been adopted. Next on our agenda is Resolution 2019-69. Mr. Murphy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Resolution 2019-69, a resolution confirming the action of the Board of Zoning Appeals of the City of Mayfield Heights in granting to Jim Wallace Prospectus Architecture on behalf of Apex Medical Office Building a front yard setback variance of 40 feet to locate the parking lot 60 feet from the center line of Cedar Road. Again, this is a parcel consisting of 16 parcels on the undeveloped Jasmine Circle. First reading.
Thank you, Mr. Murphy. Is there a motion to suspend the rules? Moved by Mr. Balestria, seconded by Mrs. Teresi. Can I have a roll call, please, on the motion to suspend?
Mrs. Tressi.
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta.
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder.
Yes.
Mr. Mano.
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn.
Abstain.
Mr. Belstria.
Yes.
Mrs. Finney.
Yes. Is there a motion to approve? Moved by Mrs. Teresi, seconded by Mr. Mano. Any discussion? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Mr. Belstria.
Yes.
Mrs. Tressi.
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta.
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn.
Abstain.
Mrs. Snyder.
Yes.
Mr. Mano.
Yes.
Mrs. Finney.
Yes. Resolution 2019-69 has been adopted. Next on our agenda is Resolution 2019-70. Mr. Murphy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Resolution 2019-70, a A resolution confirming the action of the Board of Zoning Appeals of the City of Mayfield Heights in granting to Jim Wallace, Prospectus Architecture, on behalf of Apex Medical Office Building, a side yard setback variance of 10 feet to locate the parking lot 90 feet from the center line of Landerbrook Drive, parcel consisting of 16 parcels on the undeveloped Jasmine Circle. First reading.
Thank you, Mr. Murphy. Is there a motion to suspend the rules? Moved by Mrs. Snyder, seconded by Mrs. Sabetta. Could I have a roll call, please, on the motion to suspend?
Mrs. Snyder?
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn?
Abstain.
Mr. Mano?
Yes.
Mr. Belstria?
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta?
Yes.
Mrs. Teresi?
Yes.
Mrs. Finney?
Yes. Is there a motion to approve? Moved by Mrs. Teresi, seconded by Mr. Balestria. Any discussion? Seeing none, could I have a roll call, please, on the motion to approve?
Mrs. Sabetta?
Yes.
Mr. Mano?
Yes.
Mr. Belstria?
Yes.
Mrs. Teresi?
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder?
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn?
Abstain.
Mrs. Finney?
Yes. Resolution 2019-70 has been adopted. Next on our agenda is Resolution 2019-71. Mr. Murphy, please.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Resolution 2019-71, a resolution confirming the action of the Board of Zoning Appeals of the City of Mayfield Heights in granting to Jim Wallace, Prospectus Architecture, on behalf of Apex Medical Office Building, a rear yard setback variance of 15 feet to locate the parking lot 10 feet from the rear property line. Parcel consisting of 16 parcels on the undeveloped Jasmine Circle. First reading.
Thank you, Mr. Murphy. Is there a motion to suspend the rules?
Move.
Moved by Mr. Mano, seconded by Mrs. Teresi. Could I have a roll call, please, on the motion to suspend?
Mr. Mano?
Yes.
Mr. Belstria?
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn?
Abstain.
Mrs. Sabetta?
Yes.
Mrs. Teresi?
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder?
Yes.
Mrs. Finney?
Yes. Is there a motion to approve? Moved by Mrs. Snyder, seconded by Mr. Balestria. Discussion. Can we have a roll call, please, Vicky?
Mr. DeJohn?
Abstain.
Mrs. Snyder?
Yes.
Mrs. Teresi?
Yes.
Mr. Belstria?
Yes.
Mr. Mano?
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta?
Yes.
Mrs. Finney?
Yes. Resolution 2019-71 has been adopted. Next on our agenda is Resolution 2019-72. Mr. Murphy.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Resolution number 2019-72, a resolution confirming the action of the Board of Zoning Appeals of the City of Mayfield Heights in denying to Jim Wallace, Prospectus Architecture, on behalf of Apex Medical Office Building, a variance to replace the required 6-foot masonry buffer wall on the west property line adjacent to a residentially zoned parcel with a 6-foot vinyl fence. This is the same parcel consisting of 16 parcels on the undeveloped Jasmine Circle. First reading.
Thank you, Mr. Murphy. Do I have a motion to suspend the rules?
Move.
Moved by Mr. Mano,
Second.
seconded by Mr. Balestria. Can we have a roll call, please, on the motion to suspend?
Mrs. Teresi?
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta?
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder?
Yes.
Mr. Mano?
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn?
Abstain.
Mr. Belstria?
Yes.
Mrs. Finney?
Yes. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Moved by Mrs. Teresi, seconded by Mrs. Snyder. Discussion, Mrs. Sabetta?
Thank you, Madam President. I would like to point out that the BZA recommended and now council has approved Resolution 2019-68, approving a variance of 10 feet to allow the building to be 90 feet from the west property line, bringing the building closer and the parking closer to the property line where the masonry wall is required. The BZA may modify the application of such provisions and grant a variance, provided that it gives reasons and findings of fact for its decision. The applicant quoted cost factor, and he was asked by the chairman again, and that was his practical difficulty or hardship. And the committee did not feel that it was a practical difficulty or a hardship, and it was a unanimous denial, and all members were present.
Thank you, Mrs. Sabetta. Any questions, comment? Mrs. Teresi?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I believe that we have granted mounds and landscape barriers between other property in that close proximity to this property. I believe we've granted a mound with landscaping for Lander Brook rehabilitation, which is right on Lander Road. And I believe we did the same with CA Senior Living on Lander Haven Drive.
You mean, are you speaking of pardon me,
Mrs. Sabetta?
thank you. LLC Senior Living, their campus?
Correct, on Lander Road. So there was a home on one side, actually a home on each side. And I believe we allowed them to have a mound and landscaping.
I was told today it is a masonry fence in the back. We did give them a condition on the side property that they did, if they did develop the side property, they were to put up the masonry fence also there. That was the condition we gave them, but there is a masonry wall going up between the residents and them.
Okay?
Yeah. The other mound we gave was Dr. Leedy. That is a U8 and a U7. You are correct of the mound on the other development, that rehab.
And do we have a mound separating the rehabilitation center from the office buildings that are on Lander Brook? Or do we have a masonry wall, or do we have anything behind that?
This is
facility?
between residential? Is that, this, they're asking between residential and commercial.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Sabetta.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Mr. Belstria?
I think just for clarification, the ordinance calls for a masonry buffer wall between a residential property and a commercial property.
That is correct.
And I think the instances of what you cited now are commercial. And I think maybe they even purchased that one home. The senior living purchased that one home anyway, so that no longer is going to be zoned.
Are you on Lander Haven Drive?
On Lander Haven.
How about on Lander Road?
Lander Road?
Lander Road, right past Lander Brook Drive. Is it not called Lander Haven, or isn't it called Lander Brook Rehab? Lander
Mayor?
Brook
Yes.
Rehabilitation?
Yes.
And don't they have a mound on the south side? Right next to, I believe it's Geraci's property? Am I correct? There is a mound?
Mhm.
Okay. Is the
Correct.
Geraci property considered residential?
Tom, has that been rezoned? I believe it's still residential.
Yes.
Mr. Jamison?
I don't think it's been rezoned.
I don't think it's been rezoned. And even if it's been rezoned today, when we approved and mound, I believe that home was residential.
Yes.
Mr. Jamison?
That home was residential at the time. No, and someone was living there as well. We're talking about the Atria.
Atrium,
Right,
Yes.
the skilled nursing
same
facility.
thing, Lander.
Yes.
Lander.
Right,
Lander-
that's residential
something.
that abuts, they were rezoned to U8. Just like Dr. Leedy's was U8. They both abut residential properties, and they are required to have a masonry wall. It isn't just that it's residential. Any zoning district that's different than the zoning district next to them has to have a 6-foot masonry wall.
Thank you, Mr. Jamison.
Sure.
Anyone else have any questions, comments?
Right.
Mrs. Teresi?
I was just gonna ask Mr. Jamison a quick question. Tom, do we require them now, the rehab center or Dr. Leedy's, to go back and put a masonry wall?
No,
We don't,
they
because
were-
we gave them a mound.
It was approved.
It was approved,
It was
okay,
approved in a variance form and by planning and council.
Correct, okay,
Both developments.
right, that's what I thought. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Roll call, please, Vicky.
Mrs. Snyder?
No.
Mr. DeJohn?
Abstain.
Mr. Mano?
No.
Mr. Belstria?
No.
Mrs. Sabetta?
Yes,
Mrs. Teresi?
No,
Mrs. Finney?
Yes. So, the vote is 2 to 4.
4 noes and 1 abstain.
No, it is not overturned. It's 2 to 4, right? Vicky?
4 noes and 1 abstention. And 2 yes.
So,
All right, so this resolution was not passed pursuant to ordinances. Any member of council or the mayor can bring forward an ordinance at the next meeting, or a resolution, I should say, to have either the same variance or a different variance granted, because some action has to be taken on the variance request. And right now, it's in limbo because no action has been taken on it. So, at the next meeting, I will draft legislation for, whoever member of council wants to either grant the variance as requested or some lesser variance, since it appears that council has determined that it does not agree with the Board of Zoning Appeals with regard to the denial of the vinyl fence in place of the masonry fence.
okay, thank you, Mr.
I'll
Murphy.
elaborate on that later, but right now this has been denied.
It's denied. Okay, so Resolution 2019-72 has been denied. So I believe that the only people that could put this out would be somebody that voted no, correct?
No,
Yes, yes would
no.
be,
incorrect.
which is it?
Any member of council, the ordinance reads, any member of council can put forth, this resolution has been defeated. It's
Okay.
done, it's finished. But there has to be some action by council on the request for a variance. You can't just leave it in limbo. So some member of council or the mayor can, who hasn't abstained, or the mayor, can put forward a resolution determining some action on the variance. It can be the same one or something different.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Murphy. Move on to Resolution 2019.
Benny?
Yes, Mr. Belstria?
For clarification, it hasn't been defeated, it's been approved, correct? I mean,
No.
It was a denial. So the resolution is upheld, it's been approved that it's a denial.
No, the resolution failed. There were only two yes votes. So the resolution to confirm the action.
But it hasn't been overturned, the decision of the
There wasn't
BZA
enough
is not-
votes.
No. No, that's what I'm saying, that you need a resolution taking some action on the BZA's denial. And that could be either the same resolution could come forward, or there could be a resolution that would grant the variance as requested, or something in between.
Okay.
Maybe, as Mrs. Teresi was talking about, maybe a mound with trees
the mound with
instead
trees,
of,
like the other,
instead of a masonry
have.
fence.
it's much more attractive than a masonry wall.
Thank you. We'll move on now to Resolution 2019-73. Mr. Murphy.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Resolution 2019-73, a resolution confirming the action of the Planning Commission of the City of Mayfield Heights approving a lot consolidation of Cuyahoga County permanent parcel numbers 861-01-003 and 861-01-004, 5739 Mayfield Road, so as to create one parcel. First reading.
Thank you, Mr. Murphy. Is there a motion to suspend the rules?
Move.
Moved by Mr. Mano,
Second.
seconded by Mr. Balestria. Could I have a roll call, please, on the motion to suspend?
Mr. Mano?
Yes.
Mr. Belstria?
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn?
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta?
yes,
Mrs. Tressi.
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder.
Yes.
Mrs. Finney.
Yes. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Moved by Mrs. Teresi, seconded by Mr. Mano. Discussion. Mr. Belstria?
Yes, this is the Conrad's property on the corner of Eastwood and Mayfield. Obviously, they need the consolidation of two lots into one. This was approved by the planning commission, and they need the approval by council to go forward with their construction. I believe they've already raised the building. So, two buildings, yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Belstria. Mr. DeJohn?
Mr. Balestria, are they gonna have to have a masonry wall there?
As far as, yeah, the planning commission would require them to have a masonry wall there, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other discussion? Can I have a roll call, please, Vicky?
Mr. DeJohn.
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder.
Yes.
Mrs. Tressi.
Yes.
Mr. Belstria.
Yes.
Mr. Mano.
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta.
Yes.
Mrs. Finney.
Yes. Resolution 2019-73 has been adopted. Next, we'll move on to Resolution 2019-74. Mr. Murphy.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Resolution 2019-74, a resolution authorizing the mayor to enter into an amendment to the agreement with Glaus, Pyle, Schomer, Burns, and DeHaven, Inc., DBA GPD Group, to provide additional professional consulting services in connection with the sidewalk program evaluation and declaring an emergency. First reading.
Thank you, Mr. Murphy. Is there a motion to suspend the rules?
Move.
Moved by Mr. DeJohn, seconded by Mr. Balestria. Can we have a roll call, please, on the motion to suspend?
Mrs. Tressi.
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta.
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder.
Yes.
Mr. Mano.
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn.
Yes.
Mr. Belstria.
Yes.
Mrs. Finney.
Yes. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Moved by Mrs. Snyder, seconded by Mrs. Teresi. Discussion? Mrs. Sabetta?
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
Mrs. Sabetta?
Did you want to say something first?
This, yeah, I can go. This recommendation comes out of the last Public Works Committee meeting. And again, apologize that council doesn't have the minutes, but I hope I recollect exactly what we talked about. This is to allow our city engineer, GPD Group, to go out and do a survey of various streets within the city at a cost of no more than $10,000 to give to council a handle and give to the Public Works Committee a handle on exactly how many blocks of sidewalk would be in need of repair. Then we can best ascertain as to what that cost is going to be total for the project. So they're going to go out, walk the streets, take some selected cities on the north side, south side, some of our longer streets, smaller streets, and then we can get a handle on how many actual blocks would need to be repaired, an estimate. We're going to extrapolate that data, and that would give us an approximate cost of what the program is going to cost the city, which we all approved to go forward with, that we're hoping to start next year. So we need to have all this data in place. We need to know what the cost of concrete is, and then what we can offer to the residents if they so choose to use the city services as opposed to doing it themselves. But council will have that whole program as far as it's approved by, as soon as it's approved by Public Works, and we have that data back. And we'll need that data to at least get some concrete numbers, especially to the finance, and let them know what we're gonna have to need to budget for and what the cost would be for to reinitiate this program. I hope that kind of explains everything we're doing.
Thank you, Mr. Balestria. Any other questions? Mrs. Sabetta?
We did allot 35,000 for this program. Is that 10,000 going to come out of that?
I'm gonna defer to Finance Director, but yes, there is monies available.
Mrs. Fagan?
We would be looking for that $10,000 to come out of the sidewalk fund, because this will be a sample selection of streets so that we can get a better idea of where the full program is going.
And do we know how long this would take, this research?
Mr. Balestria, do you know how long?
I'll refer to Dan, but it would be during the summer months, if that's correct, Dan. Within a few months, we should know. Yeah, go ahead. And as soon as we get that data back, we'll call another Public Works meeting, which all council can, maybe even a council of the whole at that point.
Yeah, Dan Gerson, city engineer, Mayfield Heights. We would get started on it probably after you pass it, if you pass it. So within a month, we should have data back for Public Works, and we'd have a Public Works meeting to discuss what we found. So I would say within 30 days.
Okay, thank you. Mr. DeJohn, did you have a question? Oh, I'm sorry. Anybody else?
I just want to know, you'll walk the entire city or certain groups of streets?
So what we proposed is we proposed to walk somewhere in the range of 4 to 6 streets. And what we're going to do is walk them, evaluate, and try to find out how many blocks would be city responsibilities, so utilities, trees, corners, which would be typically city responsibility, and how many would be typically residential. And then what we would do is extrapolate that with how many streets we have in the city, how many lineal feet of streets, and then we could kind of come up with an idea if we did the whole city, what kind of magnitude that cost would be extrapolated. Then we kind of determine where we go with the program, how the programs roll out, how the program moves from there.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. DeJohn?
Just to add, Mr. Balestria, what he was saying, and to the residents of Mayfield Heights, this ordinance has been on the books for a very long time and hasn't been enforced. So that's what we're trying to do here, is reinforce the sidewalk ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you. Could I have a roll call, please, Vicky?
Mr. Belstria.
Yes.
Mrs. Tressi.
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta.
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn.
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder.
Yes.
Mr. Mano.
Yes.
Mrs. Finney.
Yes. Resolution 2019-74 has been adopted. Next on our agenda is Resolution 2019-75. Mr. Murphy.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Resolution 2019-75, a resolution authorizing change order number 1 with American Pavements, Inc. for the 2019 crack sealing program and declaring an emergency. First reading.
Thank you, Mr. Murphy. Is there a motion to suspend the rules?
So moved.
Moved by Mrs. Teresi, seconded by Mrs. Snyder. Could I have a roll call, please, on the motion to suspend?
Mrs. Snyder.
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn.
Yes.
Mr. Mano.
Yes.
Mr. Belstria.
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta.
Yes.
Mrs. Tressi.
Yes.
Mrs. Finney.
Yes. Is there a motion to approve?
Move.
Moved by Mr. DeJohn, seconded by Mrs. Sabetta. Discussion, I think it's pretty self-explanatory. Anyone? Mr. Belstria, anything to add?
I would defer to Mr. Gerson if the council needs an explanation what the change order is all about.
I think we all read it in our package. Any
Okay.
questions? Okay, roll call, please.
Mrs. Sabetta.
Yes.
Mr. Mano.
Yes.
Mr. Belstria.
Yes.
Mrs. Tressi.
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder.
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn.
Yes.
Mrs. Finney.
Yes, Resolution 2019-75 has been adopted. Next on our agenda are ordinances. We have one ordinance this evening. Ordinance 2019-17. Mr. Murphy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ordinance number 2019-17, an ordinance amending ordinance number 2019-7 for the appropriation expenditures of the City of Mayfield Heights, State of Ohio for the fiscal year ending December 31, 2019. Specifically, the transfer and supplemental appropriation of funds in various accounts and declaring an emergency. First reading.
Thank you, Mr. Murphy. Is there a motion to suspend the rules? Moved by Mrs. Snyder, seconded by Mr. Balestria. Could I have a roll call, please, on the motion to suspend?
Mr. Mano.
Yes.
Mr. Belstria.
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn.
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta.
Yes.
Mrs. Tressi.
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder.
Yes.
Mrs. Finney.
Yes. Is there a motion to approve? Moved by Mrs. Teresi, seconded by Mr. Balestria. Discussion? Mrs. Fagan, anything to add?
Hopefully the legislation is self-explanatory, and there was a memo that went out earlier, an email that went out earlier to council explaining those changes.
Thank you. Could I have a roll call, please?
Mr. DeJohn.
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder.
Yes.
Mrs. Tressi.
Yes.
Mr. Belstria.
Yes.
Mr. Mano.
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta.
Yes.
Mrs. Finney.
Yes, ordinance 2019-17 has been adopted. Next on our agenda are motions. There's one motion this evening. Motion A, Mr. Murphy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. A motion to confirm the decision of the Planning Commission approving a directional sign at the north side access drive for Cleveland Plastic Surgery at 2060 Lander Road.
Thank you, Mr. Murphy. Is there a motion to approve? Moved by Mr. Balestria. Seconded by Mrs. Sabetta. Discussion. Mr. Balestria, anything you want to add?
Yeah, this came out of the last planning commission. You have the minutes. It was a unanimous approval by the planning commission. There's no signage on the side of the building. This is a directional sign that was requested and again approved by the PC to help better navigate the site. Cleveland Plastic Surgery is the only tenant in the building.
Thank you, Mr. Balestria. Mr. DeJohn?
Mr. Balestria, the size of the sign again, please?
I'm sorry, the size?
Size of the sign?
I don't know what the specifications were for the size.
I don't know that I saw that.
Anybody? Sir, do you know the size of the sign? Would you like to come up, state your name and address for the record, please?
Bob Kunzen with Brilliant Electric Sign Company, 4811 Van Epps Road, Brooklyn Heights, Ohio. The sign stands at 4 feet tall by 2 feet wide. The face area is 2 foot by 2 foot. It is double-sided.
Thank you. Mayor?
Thank you.
You have the example. You want to show it so everybody can see it? If you put it right down there, that way everybody can take a look at it.
Okay, thank you.
That's what was approved.
Any other questions? Can we have a roll call, please? Oh, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion A has been adopted. Is there any new business or comments from council? Seeing none, everybody, I just want to comment, everyone have a great summer and be safe and watch out for the kids on the streets. Is there a motion to adjourn? So moved. Moved by Mrs. Teresi, seconded by Mrs. Snyder. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you for joining us this evening.